Hi, I'm Graham from Second Era of Moles, and if you've clicked on this video accidentally, 90 seconds is all I ever ask. Welcome back to another week that was for Pokemon Masters X. I've been waiting most of the week for the newest event to come along, so we've had the Champion Stadium, we've had a new villain event, and also the story to go along with it. We've had Uxie in the Legendary Arena, so let's dive right in. For this week's Champion Stadium, we're carrying on in the Johto region. It was one of those weeks where I never felt quite in control of everything. I kind of felt like I was on the line between success and failure at all times. But hey, if you're not living life on the edge, then what are you doing? So in round 1, you get a stats reduction boost. I chose to take on Bruno for this one, and my team was Sycamore and Xerneas, Lily and Clefairy, and Dawn and Torterra. This round proves that your triple support tactics can still work on a 2k battle round. So you have Lily in there with Disarming Voice for reducing stats, you have Dawn and Torterra for Attack Siphon, and then you have Xerneas as your main fairy type striker. I had Dawn and Torterra as my first target for that Attack Siphon. Usually I might have gone with Xerneas for that Horn Leech and healing, so it's up to you which one you feel works better for you. But you start off using Disarming Voice with Lily and X Accuracy, your Dazzling Gleam with Xerneas, your X Defense and Razor Leaf with Dawn and Torterra. When you get your Sync move, I gave it to Xerneas for that boost to special attack and also to speed. I feel like that's much more helpful, gets the move gauge moving a lot more quickly. After your Sync move, you're carrying on with Razor Leaf and Disarming Voice from Dawn and Lily respectively. With Xerneas, you're probably using a couple of Moon Blasts, and then you're starting off The World is Vast to get that healing going just before Bruno unleashes his Sync move. When that comes, it's middle of the road, so it does some damage, but it's not devastating. When it came to my second Sync move, I gave that to Dawn and Torterra for that 6x boost. When you get into that third phase, you're doing more Moonblast and Horn Leeches with Xerneas. I think in this phase, that's when I used Good as New with Dawn, because although Bruno's not hitting you very hard, if he's coming in there with close combats with Hitmonchan, he's still going to be chipping away at you, and I was of the mind I'd rather use it early and be like, oh, I could have saved it, rather than have Torterra faint and being, I didn't use it at all. So in this phase I also started to put some full powers onto Xerneas to line up with some Moonblasts and try and do a bit more damage with those. When it came down to that third Sync move, I gave it to Lily because she's 6x support also, and she's going to do some fairy type damage with it. So your move gauge usage shouldn't be that much of an issue. You should be able to use a Disarming Voice with Lily, a Razor Leaf with Dawn, and then also either a Moonblast or a Horn Leech with Xerneas. And then you should occasionally be able to use either a Moonblast with Clefairy or a Seed Bomb with Torterra to do that little bit more damage as well. Dawn and Torterra fainted just before I took out Bruno, and then I was left with Lily and Xerneas just to finish them off, which they did with absolute fairy-like aplomb. In round 2, you get a physical attack boost. I chose to take on Will, who is weaker to dark types, with the Masked Royal, Piers, and Swimsuit Misty. So I chose Masked Royal because he has a very strong Sync move. He's also a physical attack striker. Well, he uses physical attack moves as opposed to someone like Karen, who's special attack, or some of the other dark type strikers. So you start off with Ready Fight and then Darkest Lariat with the Masked Royal. With Misty, you're using Water Gun all the way through. With Piers, you're using a combination of Raising Crit Hit and also Shout My Name. When that first Sync move comes, it's going to go to Piers because he's 6x Bubblegum Man. When you get into that second phase, you're going to boost up the Masked Royal's attack and then go back to Darkest Lariat. A couple of Water Guns from Misty, and then that's where you start using Duck and Cover. That's going to give you some stats boost, and it's also going to give you that casual healing, which Piers probably is going to start needing at this point. Piers himself is using maybe a Night Slash, maybe some more Shout My Name, depending on how many refreshes you get, any crit hit raises, it gets also left over. If you have that where you miss the 3 moves after your first sync move, you can also use an obstruct to nullify some damage from Xato's sidekick, because that's its main attack. When that second sync move came along, I gave it to the Masked Royal. It took me a couple of attempts to do this one. In the first go through, Will's sync move hit particularly the Masked Royal really hard. It was left with a tiny little sliver of health in the end. But the second time round, it didn't quite hit as hard, and Masked Royal had a bit more health, so yeah. In this phase, you're using up any more obstructs that you have to nullify, because this is when Will really starts to try and put the boot in with his sidekicks. Misty is using either water gun or potions, depending on how Piers is doing in terms of health. Masked Royal is using Darkest Lariat over and over again to chip away with that damage. I still find Piers kind of awkward to use with obstruct and also shout my name, because it's like I want that move gauge boost, but I also kind of want him to get a few more endurances out of it, so I have to balance using those two. And a lot of the time I forget if he takes that hit and gets him down to that 1 health, it's like, ooh, I've got to use shout my name again. This one goes on long enough that if you get a refresh on duck and cover, you can put it on there again to restart that passive healing. You're attacking with Masked Royal and Darkest Lariat and sync moves. This is potentially one of those battles where you could use your Darkest Lariats to chip away at the sides and then just aim all of your sync moves down the middle, because his sync move is very, very powerful, and it will be enough to get through this battle. When you get on to round 3, your condition is the additional effects of moves are more likely. Koga was weak to fire types this week, so I took him on with a team of Blaine and Rapidash, N and Reshiram from the anniversary, and Signasuit, Elesa and Rotom. I wanted to do something a bit different rather than just using Leon or Red and Charizard and just going to absolute town on them. So hopefully this showcases a bit of something different in a Fire Week round. You're starting off with a Fire Spin from Blaine to do a bit more trap damage in there, and then Flame Wheel is going to be your next move of choice. With N, you're raising crit hit rate and then using Truth Will Prevail to get that move gauge moving more quickly. You can also start using your Noble Roars here to reduce some stats. With Elesa, you're using special attack boosts all the way through. She's sinking first as I have her at 6x. After that, I continued on with Noble Roar for a couple of rounds to get that stats reduction, and N's sync move becomes more powerful the more the enemy stats are reduced, but you've got to balance that with also doing damage with Blue Flare. With Blaine, you're using Flame Wheel. If there's no move gauge, you can use his trainer move. Also remember to set Sun before the sync move comes along to take advantage of that damage boost. With Elesa, you're using the Breathtaking move, which is going to give you a sync move countdown. That's going to guarantee that your sync move comes before Koga's final move, which is a crit hit shield. Always useful to get in there with that sync move before that, because that's going to power it up and hopefully do a lot more damage with that. So N gets that second sync move and hopefully does a lot of damage to Koga. I managed to take out the 2 sides before Koga got to his sync move. That's where having Blue Flare and extended range comes in very, very handy. Koga's sync move wasn't too bad. There's no healing on this team though, unfortunately, so it's not like you can refresh your health. After that, Koga's going to take down Elesa, unless you're very, very lucky with her evasiveness. With Blaine, if the trap runs out, you're resetting that. You want to make sure that you reset Sunny Day as well to get that damage boost. And with N, you're just trying to do as much Blue Flare damage as you can to take down Koga before he takes you out. Maybe could have gone with a few more Noble Roars to really max out that sync move damage, but I was also conscious that I didn't just want to sit back there and not do any damage, and it's like, oh, before I know it, before I start attacking, he's taken out my 2 supports and Reshiram is left exposed. But by the end I was just saving my move gauge to attack with N and Blaine was just sitting there as a bit of a decoy and also to set sun. On to round 4 then, where you get a move gauge boost. The last remaining member of the Elite Four was Karen, who was weak to fighting types. I was like 8 tickets away from being able to move B up to 6x. No. You know what, B? You're getting a week off this week. So I went with Wally and Gallade as my main striker there. The 2 supports that I put with it were Signasuit Blue and Blastoise, and Holiday Rosa and Delibird. I probably went a bit of overkill there with the characters having move gauge boosts, but Rosa also can boost attack, and Blue is just generally awesome whatever situation you put him into. So with Wally, you're using Here I Come to boost up his stats and his accuracy. That's important if Karen decides she's going to be evasive in this battle. After that, you can use a Focus Blast, and that should be your 3 moves from him. With Rosa, you're going to raise attack. If you get a refresh, that'll be all 3 that you need. After that, you can use an All the Presents as well. That's going to boost some more stats. With Blue, you're raising defense as much as possible, and then a Water Pulse if you get no refreshes. First sync move, I went for Blue for that team endurance. You could also have Wally sync first to get Mega Gallade onto the field. Never sure whether that's a good idea or whether it's a bad idea. That's the conundrum that you always have when you've got a character that has a Mega Evolution. But if you're following my strategy, you're then coming in with Focus Blast with Wally. You're using a To The Top with Blue. That's going to give you move gauge boost and also a crit hit boost. After that, he's using Water Pulse to do a bit of maybe damage, but mostly because it will boost stats thanks to his passive moves. With Rosa, you're using Aerial Ace. If you get any X attack refreshes, those as well. Maybe in All the Presents, but be wary that you should have To The Top boosting the move gauge. You don't need to double up with both of those. When that second sync move comes, it's going to go to Wally to get Mega Gallade onto the field. After that, you want to go for Close Combat. For me, Close Combat was doing a lot more damage than Focus Blast was. That sort of physical attack versus special attack. So it's all about doing that Close Combat damage. With Blue, you're doing Water Pulse or To The Top. Rosa, same with Aerial Ace and All the Presents. But you can use your 2 supports and their refreshes wisely to max out the damage that you're doing with Wally. And it took a couple of sync moves, a little bit of evasiveness luck, and team endurance kicking in to finally take down Karen and all her associates. Finally, for round 5, your permanent condition is a special attack reduction. I chose the additional move effects being more likely for this one as well. I was hoping for refreshes of various moves. You're taking on Lance, and the team I went with was Skylar and Swanna, May and Swampert, and Barry and Empoleon. I started off trying to do dual strikers with Barry and Palkia. That didn't work too well, but when I swapped in May for Palkia, suddenly I was doing a lot more damage, and that's due to her Rain Dance. If Lance starts off with a Flare Blitz, he can one-shot Swanna if it's a crit hit, so be aware of that. If he doesn't one-shot her, make sure that you have potions on standby because it's still going to do a fair whack of damage. Other than that, you're using Take Flight with Swanna, you're using Muddy Water with May, and you're using No Hesitation with Barry. When you get down to that first sync move, it goes to Swanna, as always, because that's how we roll. When you get into round 2, you're starting to do either Bubble or Bubble Beam with Barry. Lots of alliterative B's in there. No B's of the boo variety though, so what can you do? With May, you're either using Muddy Water or Ready for This. Make sure that before that second sync move comes, you set Rain Dance so that you get rain on the field. With Skylar, you're using any Take Flight refreshes left over, any potions to keep her topped up, and also Gust if you feel the need to attack. When that second sync move comes, you're unleashing the Barry Bomb, as I like to call it. Lance's sync move, when it comes, hits hard but doesn't completely obliterate you. After that, he's going to start using either Flare Blitz or Fire Fang. I I've been avoiding that so well. Flare Blitz is the one that you really want to watch out for. If it's coming at Skylar, then you want to make sure she's got full strength. Fire Fang, it's always a blessing when you get that instead of Flare Blitz. But if you're setting Rain and you have Muddy Water and Barry's sync moves, Lance shouldn't be able to keep his head above water for too long before you sink him. And that's another 10k points run for the Johto region. We'll be back in Johto next week as well, so tune in for that. So to celebrate the new villain arc in the story, we have both the story mode updated and we have an event for it. I really like the new title screen. It just looks so good where you've got Cynthia and Cyrus and they're back to back and it's like good versus evil. But we're starting off with the event. You get boosts in battle for Sinnoh pairs. These aren't boosts to rewards, unfortunately. I had done a few before I figured that out. But we can power up Palkia now to be 6x, which is very, very exciting. I don't tend to use Palkia's sync move as much as his normal moves, but hey, now that it's 6x, you never know. This event is a long one though. It is a long one, so you've got plenty of time to complete it. You don't need to rush and be like, oh, I've not got enough stamina to do it. No, plenty of time. There's a link at the bottom of the screen which takes you to the new story. There's no story parts to the event itself. There are 2 battle challenges for this one. The first is to use 3 Sinnoh pairs and the second is to use 3 Dragon type pairs. I'm thinking maybe I'm going to wait until I've got Palkia at 6x before taking them on. I thought I'd done it because I thought it was only 2 and I had this whole speech prepared about how I'd done it, and then it was like, where's my tokens? It's 3 not 2. There was also a bit of a weird message after I completed the challenge. So yeah, I'm going to put it there, or maybe there. But yeah, that needs a bit more pondering, I think. I'm not quite sure what that means. The new story mode, though, is called Dreaming in the Darkness, which either sounds really awesome or it sounds like a teenage romance about vampires, you know? It's good to see Darkrai show up in the story, although when it does show up, it's replaces Dialga, and Dialga is this huge massive thing, and Darkrai is this tiny little thing that takes its place. I need to have a Darkrai in my team though at some point, and I need a decent Dark type striker. I'm not going to spoil the ending, but I might talk about it just a tiny little bit, so skip over the next 10 seconds or so if you don't want to see it. I thought it ended very abruptly. It was like, oh, we've just tied it up, and then the thing happened and it was like, okay, that's a bit okay. We've had Uxie return in the Legendary Arena. As always, when these Pokemon return, you have 3 challenges to complete to get gems. The 3 this time are using 3 Ghost types, 3 Alolan types, and 3 Gym Leader types. My tactic usually is to take 2 of the challenges and find ones that fulfill 2 of them and use that as my first team. So it's I've got 5 or 6 of the 9 out of the way anyway. Usually I do it with the region and the trainer type, so Johto Elite Four, for example. I couldn't do that this time because there are no Alolan gym leaders. I think they're either kahunas or they're island captains or something like that. Anyway, it made it a little bit more tricky to build. For my first team, I went with Skylar and Swanna, Morty and Driftblim, and Phoebe and Duskmar. So that gives you 2 ghost types and 2 gym leaders. If I was doing this again, I'd probably swap out Phoebe for another Alolan pair, maybe Kiawe and Marowak, because that has a ghost type attack. You start off this one boosting everyone's stats. They were trainer moves, which I've talked about extensively in the past. You have Skylar sync first, and then Phoebe for those 6x boosts, and then Morty comes in with his own strong sync move after that. You don't have to be too precious about when you use your Phantom Presences. I don't know, I'd maybe wait until after Phoebe's sync move, but it's a personal choice because they're going to do a lot of damage either way. And then after that, you're on to Shadow Ball. You've got Unbreakable Bonds to keep that move gauge topped up. You've got Potions from Skylar to keep everyone going. I got absolutely no refreshes on my potions, which was a little bit annoying because I used them relatively early, but hey, you can't get refreshes all of the time. I took this one down into the 3rd bar, which I thought was quite a good achievement, and then that meant I could move on to my 2nd team. This was a bit of a stats reduction team with a token Morty chucked in there to fulfill another gym leader in there. So the team was Morty and Miss Magus, Mina and Granbull, and Lily and Clefairy. So Lily's doing Disarming Voice, as in the Champion Stadium, to reduce stats. Mina's doing Charm to reduce stats there as well. Morty's using his trainer moves and then Astonish to keep that sync move countdown going. It got to the stage where all I was doing was attacking with Lily and then sync moves with Lily. It was a bit of a going nowhere team, and it was like just setting it up for the final team to come in and complete it. So that one had a Ghost type, a Gym Leader, and then 2 Alolan pairs. It meant that for the 3rd team, I only needed 1 more Alolan pair, and I chose Anniversary, Lily, and Lunala, and she just absolutely dominated. It was Shining Moonlight and then a couple of Moongeist Beams. I didn't even get down to my sync move. That's how quickly she took care of it. So when you've done all of that, you get 300 gems for completing each challenge, and then an extra 100 on top of that when you've done all 3. So for the final New Year's Challenge Scout, they gave you 2 from the Daily Battle and then another 8 as a reward login. I thought I'd just mention that and cover it off from last week's one. So I started off with Bugsy, then Candice, Wolfric, Roxanne, Maylene, Winona, Rourke, Marlon, and then I pulled Darak and Alistair as well, which were 2 I didn't have. So I was quite grateful for those 2. My first Dynamax pair as well, Alistair and Gengar, so it'll be interesting to see how that factors in as well. In addition to that, you could pay 3,000 gems and get scouts, like just as a one-off. And I pulled Gyarados from it. It's like, way, Gyarados! And because it has Hyper Beam, it meant that I could finally get the medal where you use Hyper Beam on Black Belts. I was absolutely dead chuffed with that. And there we have it, another week that was. Thank you very much for watching and enjoying this one with me. If you have any tips or tricks for next week's Champion Stadium or for the battle challenges in the villain event, then please let me know. But you're well past the 90-second mark at this point. Thank you very much and congratulations for making it this far. If you've enjoyed it, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm SEOM_YT. You can subscribe to the channel for the next week that was. At the moment, that's the week that will be. But thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.